A Ukrainian elite unit has moved into the forest belt. This is a long forested area south of Donetsk that has been captured by the Russians. Numerous UAV checkpoints and light artillery units are deployed here. The Ukrainian elite units arrived quietly and are slowly advancing through the forest. The commander is explaining what the soldiers need to do and the tactics. Step by step, they are moving silently deeper into the forest. You can see a Ukrainian soldier on the left, monitoring the front.
Плюс. Братан, будуть сліди летіти. Де ти тут сховаєшся? Я не хочу, щоб ти забирався.
Повтори.
These are scenes from a cold winter night. The air is slightly foggy.
Там дуже густо.
Suddenly, gunfire begins to ring out from somewhere. The Russians opened fire on Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. Within a short time, the Ukrainian soldiers found a shelter and checked inside, but no one was there. Then a few more shelters were found, but there was no one in any of them. This isn't a good sign because the Russians realized the Ukrainians were coming.
За цього ж Мурая казав. А що тут?
And that's when the firefight began. The Russians noticed the Ukrainians were approaching and, pulling back slightly, tried to ambush the elite troops. An incredible, breathtaking firefight broke out at close range. You're also seeing footage of the clash from the Russian side. Soldiers from both armies are fighting with incredible determination, determined not to retreat. A Ukrainian soldier is firing a grenade at the Ukrainian side using a light grenade launcher. Amid the roar of gunfire, Ukrainian soldiers are trying to communicate by shouting to one another. The two armies are fighting each other from all directions. Fighting at such close range causes an incredible rush of adrenaline. Then there was silence. No more gunfire was coming from the Russian side. Yes, the Russian soldiers up ahead had been neutralized, but there are more soldiers a little further ahead. That's why we need to be more careful. The Ukrainian elite soldier pulled a mini reconnaissance drone out of his backpack. He went up ahead to check the positions of the Russian soldiers. This allowed him to decide which direction would be safer to attack from.
Він в такому бліндажі з накриттям. Я спостерігаю за ним.
The drone operator moved to the front and relayed the coordinates to his comrades. As a result, every single round hit the target squarely. The Russians split into small groups and tried to return fire. However, the Ukrainian elite troops are advancing and are determined to retake the area.
Контроль 12.
A group of Russian soldiers retreated, got into their vehicles, and drove away. However, as they were leaving, they became targets for Ukrainian drone operators. The Ukrainian drone operators had previously prepared FPV drones loaded with heavy munitions. They began attacking the rapidly advancing Russian pickup trucks. All of this was captured on Russian GoPro cameras.
Стой, 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 стой!
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian elite soldiers in the forest continued to advance in search of the remaining Russian soldiers who had not yet retreated. Ensuring the security of the entire region is of the utmost importance. Meanwhile, shots were fired at 2 Ukrainian soldiers from a bunker. Fortunately, no one was injured, but the bullets flew very close by. The commander arrived immediately. A call was made for the soldiers inside to surrender, but there was no response. Following this, intense fire was directed at the bunker. Once again, a call to surrender was made. When no positive response was received, grenades were thrown inside. The situation was then reported to other units via radio. There was no sound coming from inside, neither positive nor negative, but the elite units knew someone was inside, so they continued to throw grenades inside. This way, the noise inside would be silenced in any case.
Є хтось вдома?
And finally, it happened.
Тікай, тікай, тікай!
What they feared had come to pass. They threw so many grenades into the shelter and fired so many shots from their rifles, but there were still people alive inside. An elite soldier finally tried to go inside to check, but then it happened. The elite soldier was shot. The other Ukrainian soldiers were furious and began to respond with extreme aggression. They dragged the wounded elite soldier away from the shelter and, this time, opened even heavier fire on the shelter. Meanwhile, they began moving quickly to evacuate the lightly wounded elite soldier. While bandaging the soldier's wounds, they also took cover against any other potential threats. These were extremely tense moments. Time began to pass, and evening finally fell. They spent the night taking turns on guard duty in the darkness.
Зателефонували?
Так. Жілка, ти зателефонував?
And morning came. All night long, the soldiers waited with their fingers on the triggers, because they were in the middle of the forest with no roof over their heads. It was a completely unprotected area, exposed to all kinds of dangers. Fortunately, there was no clash. Everyone made it through the night safely. It seems there's no sound coming from the shelter from earlier either. The evacuation of the wounded soldier and the other soldiers on duty is about to begin. Everyone is very tired. But in the meantime, some very important gains have been made. Donetsk is a large area. That's why there are still many places left to fight for. The Ukrainian elite soldiers successfully carried out their mission today.
Давай, щокола.